So we are in Boonesboro State Park, a Kentucky state park. And we got the last reservable site.
I watch you as you drive. Do you know I'm looking? And I can't help but smile.
Hey y'all, welcome back. Today we're in the Lexington area of Kentucky. We're camping in Fort Boonesboro State Park, which has some really interesting history, but there is some controversy surrounding the history too. We're going to check out the fort and some of the other historical monuments here. And then this afternoon, we're going to be able to do something we've been wanting to do for a long time. This is late October, and when we arrived early the evening before, we discovered they were in the middle of an event called Halloween Fest. We were originally planning to drive down to the Daniel Boone National Forest today and camp there, but we were able to snag some last-minute tickets for an activity tomorrow in the Lexington area. So we jumped online to see what kind of camping there was in the area, and we found Fort Boonesboro. So camping in October is fairly popular, but this was the middle of the week, and we were shocked at the campground being completely full. We learned from talking to some of the staff that this event, this week of Halloween Fest, actually books up a year in advance. The only reason this one campsite was still available is because it's an undesirable site that is very difficult to get into and not suitable for anything larger than our teardrop. We really didn't think it was too bad, though. It had a pretty good view. It is this one right here. So you're going to just like swing wide and just pull right up there. Once we got the camper set up and unhooked, it was time to start dinner. So we're making lemon chicken orzo soup. I have diced carrots, celery, and onion. I sauteed those in butter until they were soft, added some garlic, mixed that around. I was supposed to put a little bit of flour in that, and I forgot. So may have to add that later. And then I put 2 chicken breasts in here and covered everything with chicken broth. Once the chicken breasts were cooked, I shredded those right in the pot, added the orzo, cooked it until tender, and then added some lemon juice and Parmesan cheese. It was really simple, but surprisingly delicious. Tim's pouring the coffee. Get every last drop out of there. And we're just having peanut butter and apples. This is the coffee we're having this morning.
By the shower house.
It's by the shower house, but it's a really tiny little, like they say it's for tent camping only because there's no really pad to park a camper on. But, well, there is a pad. I think that's where you're supposed to park your car, theoretically. And
It'd be good for like a van.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be perfect for like a van or a slide-in or something like that. But the camping outfit's there. So here, let me spin you around.
Truck parked behind it.
Show the campsite. We're right across from the Kentucky River boat ramp. So we've got a view of the river over there and the boat ramp. The boat's coming and going. Pretty quiet. Got the truck parked over here. So apparently very popular state park because it is the second half of October and it's full. But they do have a whole primitive camping area. We're right next to the primitive camping area that only has a few people in it.
Yeah.
So even if we hadn't been able, and we didn't know that, if we hadn't been able to get a site, we could have still camped in the primitive area. We're gonna get packed up here. Well, not packed up, but we're gonna
Closed up.
get everything closed up and go do some exploring here because apparently there is a fort here that you can visit.
Civil War fort?
Civil War
Is that what it was?
fort. Yeah. Fort Boonesboro. We'll go check that out. See what else there is to see here.
Leaving the campground, we turned left and drove down the road just a little ways to the picnic and boat ramp area.
Playground, basketball court, picnic shelter. There's some sort of monument over here. Settlers Monument.
Try it right there with that black car.
Yeah, these have electrical hookups too. Maybe this is a group thing or something.
New area.
It appears that this is an overflow camping area. There were electrical hookups and everything here, but it is outside of the campground fence. I don't know if anybody else feels this way, but boat ramps creep me out a little bit. It's just the road disappearing into the water, especially if it's like pitch black water. This one's not as scary because it's not as steep. Hey, look at that cute little camping out there. Just stop right here. I'll go see what that is. Then I'll walk down and see what that stuff down there is. This is the original site of Fort Boonesboro, and there is this monument here. I don't believe the stone wall is original to the fort from the 1700s. I think the wall was constructed in 1915 by the same group who put the monument here. Although this is the original site of the fort, the park has reconstructed a replica fort not that far away. There is another monument in this area that gives a hint at how the fort came to be. Boone had spent a lot of time in this area working as a market hunter, and he was hired by the Transylvania Land Company in order to clear a path to this area so they could establish the Transylvania colony. The settlement here, Boonesboro, was going to be the capital or center of that colony. We weren't familiar with this part of history, and so we're surprised to see the name Transylvania. Apparently in Latin, though, that just means across the woods or through the woods. The colony wasn't recognized by the royal governors, though. This was pre-Revolutionary War, right about the time the Revolutionary War was starting, and the French-Indian War had set all the land west of the Appalachians as Indian territory. So even though the company bought the land from the Cherokee or signed a treaty with the Cherokee, which is kind of questionable in and of itself, it wasn't recognized as a valid treaty or purchase or valid colony. Of course, the entire history is much more complicated than that. Anyone who's more familiar with the local history, please feel free to share that in the comments. On several of these plaques, though, you can also see where the controversy arises. So these plaques often refer to the destiny of the white race or for the benefit of the white race. So the Park Service has placed informational signs explaining that at the time that many of these plaques were erected, which I believe was in the early 1900s, that you can see who was writing the history and what has been left out of the history. The campground here at the state park is open year-round, but the fort is only open the beginning of April to the end of October. Admittance into the fort is $8 per adult, $5 for children 6 to 12, and under 6 is free.
A lot of people here.
Mm-hmm. It also seems to be really popular with school groups. In one of the buildings, there's a short film that you can watch about Boonesboro, Fort Boonesboro, how it was established and events that happened. And there are also resident artisans and interpreters that share crafts and how things were done and talk about the history of the fort. That was kind of interesting.
Yep.
I always get Daniel Boone and Davy Crockett mixed up.
Mm-hmm.
So in this whole Transylvania thing,
Transylvania.
yeah, so apparently the white settlers that moved here, they established this area as Transylvania. Yeah. I'm going to go look at this monument over here.
Okay.
In the next video, we'll be hitting the rails. We're going to take a ride with rail explorers. We've been wanting to do this for a while, but they book up quite a bit ahead of time. As we were planning this trip to Kentucky, we were disappointed that there were no tours available. But about a week ago, we got an email from them saying that they were opening some new reservations. So we snatched those up as quickly as we could and adjusted our schedule accordingly. So we hope you'll join us in the next video as we ride the rails through the bluegrass region. We hope you enjoyed exploring Boonesboro with us today and learning a little bit about that history, and we'll see you in the next video.
Forever, I watch you as you drive. Do you know I'm looking?